Commander Zara Chen adjusted her environmental suit's settings as the transport ship Endeavour descended through the crimson atmosphere of Kythera Prime. Through the viewport, she watched lightning storms rage across continents while volcanic eruptions painted the horizon in sheets of molten orange. "Final approach to surface," announced Captain Marcus Rodriguez from the pilot's seat. "Temperature outside is holding steady at 127 degrees Celsius. Atmospheric pressure is 3 times Earth standard, and we're detecting sulfuric acid concentrations that would melt most known materials." Dr. Elena Vasquez, the expedition's xenobiologist, checked her instruments one final time. "Radiation levels are off the charts. The Galactic Council wasn't exaggerating when they classified this as a Class 15 Deathworld. Even the Krillian Empire's battle-hardened warriors refused this assignment." The assignment had been simple enough in the briefing rooms of Luna Station. The Galactic Council needed survey data from Kythera Prime to determine if the planet contained the rare crystalline formations necessary for faster-than-light communications. 12 different species had attempted the mission. 12 had failed, their ships found as twisted wreckage in the planet's toxic storms. "Humans are expendable," the Vorthon ambassador had said with his characteristic lack of diplomacy. "If they die, the galaxy loses little. If they succeed, we all benefit." Zara had accepted the mission not because she agreed with the assessment, but because she knew something the other species didn't. Humans had evolved on a death world too. The Endeavour touched down on a plateau of black volcanic glass. Within minutes, the ship's hull began to show stress patterns from the corrosive atmosphere. Marcus ran through the pre-exit checklist with methodical precision, each step practiced until it became instinct. "Remember," Zara addressed her team through the comm system. "We have 72 hours before the hull integrity fails completely. Find the crystals, collect samples, and get back to orbit." Dr. James Sullivan, their geologist, was already analyzing preliminary scans. "The formation should be approximately 2 kilometers northwest. The terrain looks challenging." Challenging was an understatement. As they ventured outside, Zara watched her team navigate through forests of crystalline spires that rang like bells in the howling wind. The ground beneath their feet was a maze of crevasses that glowed with superheated gases. Above them, creatures that seemed to be living glass swooped and dove, their bodies adapted to thrive in conditions that would instantly kill most galactic species. "Contact ahead," Marcus reported, raising his weapon instinctively. Through the sulfuric haze, they could make out structures, clearly artificial, clearly inhabited. The buildings seemed to grow from the landscape itself, their surfaces shimmering with the same adaptive properties as the flying creatures. "Those are Krillian markings," Elena whispered, examining the symbols carved into what appeared to be a doorway. "But that's impossible. The official report said their expedition was completely destroyed." A figure emerged from the structure, tall, imposing, with the distinctive ridged skull of a Krillian warrior. But instead of the expected environmental suit, the being wore only light, breathable clothing that seemed to move with the toxic wind. "You're human," the Krillian said in accented Standard Galactic. His name, he explained, was Korvax, formerly of the 15th Assault Legion. "I wondered when your species would arrive." Zara kept her weapon lowered but ready. "The Council said all previous expeditions failed." Korvax made a sound that might have been laughter. "Failed to return, yes? Not failed to survive." He gestured to the settlement around them. "We learned something here, something the Council doesn't understand." As Korvax led them deeper into the settlement, Zara saw the impossible. Representatives from all 12 previous expeditions, living and thriving in conditions that should have killed them within minutes. Methane-breathing Zephyrians tended gardens of crystalline plants. Silicon-based quartzites had somehow modified their molecular structure to process the planet's unique minerals. "How?" Dr. Vasquez asked the question they were all thinking. "Adaptation," Korvax explained. "Your species isn't the first to evolve on a hostile world, but you might be the first to recognize that survival isn't about fighting the environment. It's about becoming part of it." Dr. Sullivan held up his scanner, his voice filled with wonder. The crystalline formations aren't just scattered randomly. They're part of a living network. The entire planet is conscious. Kythera Prime hadn't been trying to kill them, Zara realized. It had been testing them. Every species that had arrived with the intention of taking what they needed and leaving had failed the test, but those who had remained, who had tried to understand rather than conquer, had been welcomed. The crystals you seek, Korvax continued, they're not just communication devices. They're how Kythera Prime thinks, how it dreams. Take them by force and you destroy something irreplaceable. But work with the planet. Become part of its ecosystem. He led them to a chamber where crystals the size of buildings pulsed with soft light. It will share its gifts freely. Over the following days, Zara's team learned to work with the planet rather than against it. Marcus discovered that his pilot skills translated perfectly to navigating the living crystal networks that served as Kythera Prime's transportation system. Elena found that the planet's apparent hostility was actually a complex immune response, one that could be negotiated with rather than overpowered. James made perhaps the most significant discovery. The planet wasn't just alive, it was lonely. For millennia, it had waited for species intelligent enough to communicate with it, to become partners rather than parasites. When the Endeavor finally returned to Luna Station, it carried more than just crystal samples. It carried proof that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their ability to survive hostile environments. It was their ability to turn enemies into allies, to find common ground in the most unlikely places. The Galactic Council had expected another failure. Instead, they got the first successful diplomatic contact with a Class 15 Deathworld. And Zara Chen had proven something the other species were only beginning to understand. Sometimes the most dangerous worlds were just waiting for someone brave enough to listen,